Welcome to Excellence Practised, a series of conversations about how excellence is built, how people grow, and how responsibility shows up in real careers. I'm Boipelo in the Johannesburg office, and today we're exploring what it means to succeed at Baker McKenzie, not just at the point of application, but over the course of a career. Baker McKenzie is a global firm by design. We work across borders, legal systems, and cultures to deliver solutions for a connected world. That way of working not only shapes how we advise clients, but how we think about talent, their development, and long-term potential. Where candidates often focus on marks, CVs, and securing an offer, today we want to shift that lens. This conversation is about the behaviors, mindsets, and standards that help people build credibility, add value, and grow within a truly global firm. So to do that, we've brought together recruiters from different Baker McKenzie offices and regions, each operating in distinct talent markets, but all of us working towards the same expectations and culture. This is not a conversation about how to game the recruitment process. It's an honest discussion about what excellence looks like in practice, beyond our borders. So let's begin. I'll ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and briefly share the lens they bring to graduate recruitment and development at the firm. I'll kickstart with you, Ellie, move on to Jenny, and close off for Shiny.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ellie Beattie. I am the Senior Early Careers Manager for the EMEA region at Baker McKenzie. I've been at the firm for nearly 4 years now, and my role essentially is to oversee the graduate recruitment team in the London office. So supporting the firm to recruit all of our trainees and then develop them over their training contract with us for 2 years. And then my broader remit is to support early careers activities and the strategy across the EMEA offices. So nice and busy.
Hi, all. My name is Jenny Fernandez, and I am the recruitment coordinator based in the DC office. I've been at Baker McKenzie for almost a year now, and I oversee student recruitment at regional law schools where we recruit for 1L summers and 2L summers with the target goal of a return full-time offer after their graduation date. So I get to work with a lot of our regional recruitment members across offices, and the collaboration we get to see and meet students across all of our targeted schools.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shiny. I am the office talent lead for Bahrain, and I also support graduate recruitment and hiring and other HR functions for Saudi Arabia. So as part of my role, I've been with Baker McKenzie for 9 years now, but I've moved into the HR function about 4 years ago, and been heavily involved with graduate recruitment. We have a co-op placement that happens within Saudi Arabia, which is a 7-month fixed term contract. And we also have internship placements, which happen both in Bahrain and the Saudi Arabia offices. So apart from the other hires, like senior and lateral hires, I also take care of the early career recruitment.
So breadth of experience across this core. So let's go straight into it. For all of you, if you think about a junior lawyer who truly thrives at Baker McKenzie, what comes to mind first? Shiny, you can kickstart.
Okay, so when I think of a junior lawyer who's just started with us, and what would stand out for me is I think the first thing would be how probably curiosity, how curious they are, their humility, how reliable they are. Because, I think sometimes what you need is for them to do the basics consistently well. Some people just come in because they want to impress, and then they go all over the place. They have no clue how they're going. It's about their willingness to learn, how many questions they ask, and, how they respond to those questions, how intently they go back and get things done, and how reliable they are and how consistent they are with their work.
Jenny, you want to add to that? Or you, Ellie?
Yeah, I I definitely agree with consistency, and I think that goes hand in hand with just thinking on your feet. With my interactions with students, I'm on campus or bringing them into the office, and they don't know who they're going to meet. Sometimes folks just walk up to them and introduce themselves, and so they don't know if they're partners, associates, first years, some are associates also. And so I think just thinking on their feet and thinking ahead and like their planning skills and how they connect with folks, across laterals and partners and business professionals as well. So I think that the personal skills, and their soft skills and how they present themselves, just on the fly, I think is a very good first teller, and then how consistent they are throughout the recruitment process. So yeah, I would say just being swift on their feet and connecting with people.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've both said. I think for me as well, I just add, sort of picking up on the point that Jenny, you made there about relationship building. I think for me, what really stands out is kind of people that are collaborative. I think it's absolutely fundamental to what we do. Very rarely, frankly, if ever, will juniors be working alone. Everything we do pretty much is team-based, and kind of given the breadth, the depth, the international reach of the work that we do, people don't work in silos. So it's really important that you can build that relationship with people. So I think the real kind of super collaborators, to put a phrase on it, are the ones that really thrive here. And the other thing I just wanted to pick up on, something that Shiny mentioned, was kind of curiosity. I think that's really, really key. Where we see juniors who, they're genuinely curious, they're asking why something matters kind of commercially or to the client, not just how it's done legally or how I draft this. It's why is this important to the client? Why does this matter? That curiosity in everything that you do as a junior is really going to stand you in good stead. It's going to make you learn faster. It's going to help you build those relationships. So I think those are really key things for me.
I'm loving this. We're in different markets, but already there's some common standards that we all abide by. So let's unpack what candidates can actually do to demonstrate those. Jenny, if you can maybe walk us through a bit. How do you see, or what do you see as a misconception with candidates about what Baker McKenzie values, and how does that then show up in their application process?
Yeah, actually, I think this goes hand in hand with Ellie's response. I think the biggest misconception I hear from students is big law is very scary. Big law is they're going to expect all these hundreds of hours. But in reality, yes, you are putting in the time, but you are doing it with your team. And a lot of what our attorneys boast about is our interconnectedness with our other offices. So if one attorney in the DC office needs support on a project, and they, worked on a previous project with an attorney in, let's say, the London office, there's that connection. And so it's not just limited to the resources they have in, let's say, the US or North America alone. So I think that is a big fear that I hear from students, or maybe not fear, but the warnings, I guess. But it is very much team oriented and just cross office collaboration. And I think that's a huge benefit, and it does get students excited and kind of decreases that you're not doing this, they're not acquiring all these quote unquote hours alone. You are trying to build not only your network, but your portfolio, right? Because you are learning when you are working across projects and teams. So I think that's the biggest that I've heard thus far.
And I think maybe to add to that is it's people that I see trying to stand out beyond the team, or rather at the detriment of the team. So not really understanding that the value that they bring is within the team structure, and that we succeed as a team and not just as an individual, even if you're really excellent, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the kind of something that we tend to see occasionally throughout the recruitment process. You know, we're not looking for the loudest person in the room. We're looking for people who are collaborative, that understands that, you know, of course, there are diverse teams. There are different personalities. There are different backgrounds. That's what makes the firm unique. So that does tend to see, you know, that is a misconception. And I guess also the point that Jenny was making around the misconception of sort of it's going to be a bit intimidating and a really big corporate firm. I mean, of course we are. You know, we are a big corporate law firm, hopefully not intimidating. And you know, there is an expectation to work hard. And I think, you know, we shouldn't shy away from that. But I'd say that what I've observed is that people really enjoy the work that they're doing here, and they enjoy doing it with the people that work here. So, you know, you're not going to be sort of chained to the desk up all night alone. You'll be with a team if you are working late, or, you know, a deal is closing or whatever it is. And actually there's quite an exciting atmosphere to that. So it's very much a team sport, I'd say.
Yeah, I really want to, you know, add to what Ellie says, because there was this co-op who once said that, you know, I'm scared that I won't be able to speak to anyone else. I'll be flogged because, you know, I'm supposed to be here like for 7 months and they're going to just, you know, ride me to the ground and get me to do like, yeah. So I said, no, listen, you've got it all wrong. That's not how it is. You know, it's a team. So you're not going to be the only person, you know, working until, you know, midnight or whatever it is, but you know, it's a team, and there's, you know, there are people to help you, and you can walk up to a partner. You don't have to think like, okay, I'm a co-op, so I can't, you know, go up one level, or you can go up 10 levels if you need to, but you have to have the right question, and you need to know what you're asking. You know, you just do what is required of you, but at the same time, you know, understand that it's an open door policy, and you know, everyone's out here to encourage each other and to, you know, to help you learn and build. So yeah. So that there are a lot of misconceptions, but it's not so bad at all.
No. In fact, we think it's great.
Definitely. And I was just going to add, sorry, Boipelo, I was just going to add around, you know, thinking about how people can kind of portray credibility and judgment and throughout the application process and their interviews. Yeah. And I think it sort of comes down to links what we were saying, but it's about being authentically you. You sometimes will read applications or in an interview, and it's really obvious that someone is probably just saying what they think we want to hear. You know, we're not looking for a set thing. We don't have a script. There's not a checklist, a tick box. People
I always say cookie cut. There's no cookie cut Baker McKenzie.
Yeah, absolutely not. And that's what, you know, the firm kind of thrives on. So being authentically yourself really matters. You know, we want to hear what you think. And it's really obvious if things are overly rehearsed. So I would just say show up honestly and authentically you know, acknowledging that you might still be learning. You're not expected to know everything right at the beginning of your career, you know, even if you're still a student, absolutely. But just showing that you can kind of adapt to the feedback is really key.
Yeah, I would also want to add that you much rather, you know, come off as somebody who's here willing to learn, quiet, you know, willing to learn, but you know, rather than somebody who's loud, who's just, you know, all over the place and doesn't know how to fit in, and just thinks that if he or she is loud, you know, she's noticed, you know, things like that. So you'd rather just come in, be authentic, you know, be yourself, and you know, be curious, be reliable, be dependable, and just, you know, get on with work.
With the work, Shiny, you've touched on an important point. I mean, we're expecting our people to show up in their true selves, you know, authentically, understanding that authenticity is part of the team, right? But in a culturally diverse environment like the Middle East,
Yeah.
how do you think that cultural intelligence shows up in day-to-day behaviors?
See, I think you have to have respect, first of all. Emotional intelligence and respect plays a big, you need to be genuinely interested in different perspectives, working styles, not be, confined to a band or what you think is, there's no single right way to work. So you have to stay open-minded and be open to, the environment and what is required. And it is an international environment, so it's going to have different perspectives, different working styles. So you just have to be able to adapt. And I think secondly, it would be resilience, because you need to be able to receive feedback, and you're not going to
Mm.
get everything right the very first time, right? So you need to be resilient. You need to have a growth mindset to see that, okay, fine, these are my challenges, but this is only going to help me grow, and take it as an opportunity rather than a setback. And yeah, and also I think a critical skill would be to have strong communication, not just speaking well, but listening, asking thoughtful questions, and being able to adjust your communication style to what you're working with, because your client could be somebody completely different, right? So you need to understand where they are coming from and change your style to adapt to theirs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Adaptability, resilience,
Yes.
risk.
And all the while being humble about it, having humility. You don't want to come across as somebody who's judgmental, or, I come from, because in the Middle East, right, it is very, very, the class difference is very obvious sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I think I want to unpack a little bit on, the more practical elements. So because if I think about my recruitment process,
Yeah.
I often hear candidates saying stuff like, I'm commercially inclined, detail orientated, but demonstrating that is, for me, always a mixed bag. I don't know if you guys experience the same. So maybe let me ask, let me ask you here, Ellie. For you, what are the behaviors or the mindsets that you see in either your trainees or junior associates who go on to build strong careers, sustainable careers at the firm?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with your comments there around sort of commercial mindset. I think that commercial awareness, business acumen, whatever we're calling it, became a bit of a buzzword in the early career space, because firms were talking so much about how important it was, and it almost sort of lost its meaning. And so candidates would often sort of throw around, that word, but also just random legal jargon that I think, or business jargon that they thought would be valuable, or people would recognize, but it doesn't actually have sort of any value. So I'd say from that perspective, the people that are sort of aware that work that we're doing doesn't exist in a vacuum. Clients don't come to us purely with legal questions. They come to us with business problems. And so the strongest, trainees, junior lawyers understand how that legal advice will fit into the broader commercial strategy. And that doesn't mean that I'm expecting, trainees and juniors to know that straight off. We're absolutely encouraging, to develop those skills throughout your training and beyond. It's more about having that kind of mindset, demonstrating in an interview or your application or your CV that you're interested in a particular area, and being able to hold a genuine conversation at interview about it, as opposed to, just regurgitating something that you've read. Because 9 times out of 10, the person that's going to be interviewing you, usually a partner, will have a better grasp. So, they're going to be able to spot the people that maybe don't necessarily understand what the topic is that they're talking about. So I think that's a key one. The other kind of mindset point I was going to make was around being inquisitive, and having kind of a global mindset from day one. the people that are really successful, that build longer careers and stay with us longer, are curious about other offices, about other cultures, to Shiny's point, other perspectives. Even if their role is locally based, usually you will be working on international work, cross-jurisdictional work here. And so people that enjoy that, thrive, are inquisitive about, curious to learn about other offices, other countries, other jurisdictions, do really, really well. And then, sorry to hog this point, but just my final one, I think, is really key, because lots of actually trainees will ask me, what do you think sort of sets apart a good trainee from an excellent trainee or an exceptional trainee?
Yes.
One of the key things for me, it's quite basic in my mind, is proactivity, is taking the initiative. Juniors who take the next step, who follow up without being asked, who are genuine self-starters, they do very, very well. They don't need to wait to be asked. They think, what could I do here? Okay, I've taken the minutes of this meeting. It doesn't matter how basic. I've seen these are the next steps. Maybe I'll do X, Y, and Z and show that I've been listening, or I've demonstrated that I understood that particular point. I'm not expecting someone to know how to run a transaction initially, but it's just showing and making the lives of the people that you're doing the work for easier. Goes a massively long way.
Almost doing even like a little bit more homework than what is expected of them, right?
Absolutely, goes such a long way, and really stands them in good stead for their career.
Jamie, maybe
with Ellie.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. I was internally clapping. I think it's hard for them to prove before they're in the actual role or before they're actually accepted. So one thing I do not veer towards, but it is impressive if in their law school career, they're in, multiple activities, journals. I think sports, being active in sports, is something that is just right off the bat, key teller that they are team oriented. They know how to communicate. They follow rigorous schedules. They're disciplined. Sports aside, there's so many other organizations and groups that they can be a part of that belong to a community, and that just kind of shout through a resume or their paper that or a cover letter that they do know that they have that experience before they even sign an offer letter. And even before that, I have noticed that not everyone comes right from undergrad to law school, and those that have professional experience before law school or even during law school, they have those skills that they need, and they know that they should be, doing their homework ahead and doing that little bit of extra planning, keeping their as something as easy as keeping their calendars in check, keeping themselves organized with, they have their system set in place. So they're not learning themselves. They are now just putting their own experiences and perspectives into the work that they are passionate about at Baker, let's say. And so all that to say, they are learning all the content, the material in their law school and their graduate degrees. But I think they also need to kind of own that confidence of their experiences and their academics and team collaborations that they have already had before, and just bring that to Baker. Because if you have that and people have seen that in you, then you're going to organically fall into, how you've been practicing in the past already. So just that's just kind of something I've just highlight. I'm oh, okay, you were part of these orgs. Just things like that. You can reallocate those experiences into this market.
It's those
Definitely.
small
It is
habits.
it is like a probation period. So you should be like that. You should be inquisitive. You should be proactive. You should be willing to learn, to understand, to ask questions, right? I mean, that is the whole idea of being a trainee, where you get to learn as much as you can, and then you decide, like, yeah, okay, I like this practice group, and I want to go ahead with this. My interests lie here. I want to learn more. I want to grow. I think growth comes from being curious and being proactive and wanting more, right?
And it's those
Definitely.
small habits. It's those small habits that eventually turn those candidates into really strong colleagues, as
Yeah.
opposed to just capable ones.
Definitely. I was just going to add really quickly that I think, and Shani, you touched on it a little while ago, but I think it's a really important one to kind of flag again, is that resilience piece.
Yeah.
It is about being able to bounce back from challenges, being adaptable. Effort and commitment are rewarded. And I think it's even more important now for juniors to be resilient. With so many changes happening in the legal market, with the AI boom, so many different things, the career will be different in the future, and there are going to be some challenges along the way. So it's so key for people to really have that resilience, and I think you can demonstrate that. To Jenny's point, you don't have to sort of be tested for that in the interview. It's the way that you can demonstrate it is overcoming challenges, in your personal life. It doesn't suddenly mean that you've got to have overcome a challenge, that's related to work. It can be your personal life. It's about sort of demonstrating those transferable skills. So that is one that I think that you can quite easily demonstrate in an interview or in an application form.
Yeah, I want to move on a little bit more from, the candidate that is applying to us into the one that's a trainee or co-op. Janie, if you touched on the fact that you've been in graduate recruitment some time, and so you've got extensive experience in that space. Can you maybe unpack for us what is it that you think makes Baker McKenzie's approach to graduate recruitment and development reflect us as a position of a global employer of choice?
Yeah, for something that we kind of joke about a little bit more and more now, like the recruitment process is starting earlier and earlier. In the past, it's been, their second year of law school. Now we're targeting their first year of law school. And I think that's kind of what I was leaning towards in my last answer, like because it is so early and, they are just starting law school and figuring out what their practice group interests are and figuring out what career options they have, we are kind of leaning more towards like what strengths they already possess. And, I think that's, well, like I said, like it's difficult to judge before they officially enter the building, but it's that like that drive and some folks like cover letters, some folks don't. I think the cover letter is like just the perfect opportunity to really outline why, like why were you participating in these events and these organizations and these activities and these like previous employment opportunities, and how does that tie to Baker? How does that tie to being a summer associate and in the future, a full-time associate? And what they choose to highlight, I think, reflects like our target future attorneys. So if they highlight like, yes, like I was a part of these, entered in a nonprofit, like, okay, you're passionate about community, or like, they highlight their ID&E passion and, yeah. So it's just, that's like your, like just the perfect way to say like, hey, Baker has these organizations and I've been a part of those organizations like out in the world myself. And so just tying those two things together, I think just already demonstrates that you are kind of operating with the Baker framework before even, entering. So and just beyond that, like going beyond and saying like, yes, like we have the same values and, drive and discipline, me as a student saying that to Baker, and this is how I'll apply it to the firm. And that goes hand in hand with like saying like, yes, I've connected with all of these attorneys and associates across offices. I've had coffee chats. I've attended these events. That just shows that you are, not just interested in big law, but like the genuine interest in Baker shows through how you're using your time now, before you're even given the opportunity. So, and I think attorneys who are, lateraling in or vice versa, like I think have that same mindset, like what have they been doing before and how they can bring that to the table with us.
Yeah. I'm going to switch it up a bit there for Ellie. How do you think we as a firm demonstrate that we value our people and that we are invested in their development and their growth? Because I think those are some of the things that also make us an employer of choice, right? That's why people keep voting for us as such. So how what do you think it is that we're doing right?
Yeah, well, let's pat ourselves on the back, shall we? I think that one of the really unique things about the offering, and I think this goes to sort of, especially in the region that I obviously work in around EMEA, is that the juniors get early exposure to complex work and they get early responsibility, which can sound a little bit daunting. And we sort of have just said that we're not a big, scary corporate firm. There's lots of support, but we don't shield the juniors from real work. Yeah. You get the right support, but you get responsibility, which will accelerate your development. And I think that's really valuable thing when you're a junior. You're not just stuck on some huge deal and you're doing admin and the same task repetitively. That's not to say, big caveat, you won't do any admin work. Of course, as a junior, that's sort of your bread and butter, but you will get real work and you will get supported to do that. So I think that's one of the real differentiators for us, is that we're obviously an enormous organisation, but you aren't just one of hundreds and hundreds. You're a really valued employee.
Well, that's such an important point. I mean, what I'm hearing on this call, and in fact, is obviously our experience, is that we are one firm across regions, right? And that shows up in different ways, but it's one of the distinguishing factors of the firm. It's why our clients come to us, and hopefully it's also why our people stay with us, because of that interconnectedness, that cross-border work, that global experience, different cultures, etc. So, yeah, we should pat ourselves on the back if we're doing it right, but we certainly won't rest on our laurels, right? We're going to keep pushing. Shiny, maybe just coming back to you and just thinking around these points that we're making. How do you think our shared values as a firm stay consistent, even though our cultures and our markets differ? So our in-office cultures and markets.
See, I mean, I can talk to you from a Middle East perspective, right?
Yeah.
People from different nationalities, and there's so much of, cultural, togetherness, and I mean, it's a fantastic place. So it's the perception that people have about, a place, or how they will be treated, or how they're yes, there are certain restrictions probably within the country, which most countries have in their own rights and ways, but as a firm, we do not, we absolutely respect each person's cultural ethnicity, their background, what they bring to the table, and we have utmost respect for each person from different whichever nationality they belong to. And our primary goal is just the work that we do, is customer satisfaction, client satisfaction, to make sure that we are here to just, provide the service that is required. And we give equal opportunities to, all all employees could be from anywhere, anybody. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add to that?
I was just going to say, I think, interestingly, I was speaking to a partner the other day who had done an associate transfer program to one of our other offices. And so I spent 2 years in North America. And he was sort of talking about how when you step into another Baker McKenzie office, it still feels like Baker McKenzie, even though you're in a completely different office, in a completely different on a different continent, just and I was trying to ask, what are the common themes? Like, why? What is that? We're not, as you've said, Boipelo, we're not recruiting cookie cutter individuals. So how is it? And he was talking about those common values, and we were saying that it's because people have that collaborative mindset, respect for each other, respect for hard work, curiosity that I've spoken about. They're intelligent people, they're interesting people, and they're interesting and interested, I would say. So I thought that was a really interesting and good way of putting it.
I think it's also the fact that as a firm, we're very intentional about living our values. We're not just going to have them on a wall or on a website. We want our people to experience the culture of the firm, the values of the firm, irrespective of the regions and the offices that they're in. So it's not, leaving it up to chance.
Definitely.
Yeah. It is real life, because our collaborations across borders, it does not restrict itself just to a Teams call, or people actually go between offices and meet people from different cultures and backgrounds, and that makes all the difference.
I can't believe we're actually coming towards the end of our discussion. So I just want to ask maybe just one last question to all of you. If you could give advice to a candidate that is assessing whether Baker McKenzie is the right place for them, instead of figuring out whether they just, want to just get an offer for the sake of an offer, what would you tell them to focus on?
I can start if you want me to. I would say that they should look beyond the brand. So as you say, the question isn't, can I get an offer, but can I build a career here? Is this what I want? Ask yourself how you like to grow and how you develop. Do you enjoy complexity, collaboration, global exposure, or do you prefer kind of more of a narrow focus? So you might go to a firm that maybe is a more niche focused firm. I think you really need to think about the work we do, how we do it, where we do it. Why does that interest you? And obviously, certainly as much as possible, talk to a wide range of people. So not just partners, but trainees, junior associates, professional services. The culture of the firm lives in all of these interactions that you have. So that's the best way of finding out if it's the right place for you.
Yeah. And I just to kind of add on to that, pointing to, how early we recruit, at least here in North America, really leaning into learning from various practice groups and attorneys who have, transitioned from one practice group to another, because, it really is hard to say okay, this is my first year, I'm going to go into tax. Okay. But maybe down the line, you go into a project and, you lean more towards a transactional team and you're learning more from them. So before having those big commitments, just hearing from various practice groups and various just professional experiences and how they landed on where they are now could be just so much more informative. They lean on your mentors, have organic mentors. We assign mentors for our summer associate program, both senior and junior, but they also are, they form those organic mentorships already. And that can start even before you commit. That can start when you are applying, and just straight up say hey, I'm we have this in common from the same place. I would love to connect and learn more about your professional experience, and like just having those organic and real conversations before even stepping in. And if you click with someone in that way, whether at Baker or not, that might be a sign to you as well, and if you don't have that click, then, there are so many other opportunities out there also. But yes, I would say like just leaning on the people who have gone through this before is just, that knowledge is there, just ready to be soaked up. And I know that all of these attorneys are so open to being mentors and welcome that. So just utilizing them.
I totally echo with what Jenny said, because just for the fact that if you're a student doing law, you would have heard about Baker McKenzie, irrespective, right? So if you are interested to go, dwell further into it, just the length and breadth of knowledge that you would get from the different practice groups that we have within Baker McKenzie, the reach that we have over 96 countries, that should give you enough to actually want to be a part of that firm. I'm a big, huge Baker McKenzie loyal. You can tell from the way I'm saying it, but it would be a matter of honor, to be a part of such a big team, to grow, to learn. There's just immense opportunities, and we've had co-ops who have now become principal. So that's the full length and breadth of how you can grow and make a career out of what you really believe in, your passion is. And Baker McKenzie is the place that allows you to let that happen, because there is growth. If you are the right candidate, if you're the right person, you are willing to put in the work, you are willing to do what is required, then the sky's the limit, like they say. So so gear up, do your homework, and come prepared and just grow.
Love that. As we come to the end of this conversation, I think what stands out is not that Baker McKenzie looks for one type of candidate, but that we are very clear about the standards that we value across regions, offices, and roles. You've heard consistent themes today: judgment, curiosity, accountability, willingness to learn, willingness to work collaboratively in a truly global environment. Being a global firm is not just about working across borders. It's about how our people show up, how they think, how they take responsibility, and how they build credibility over time. Those behaviors are what matters, whether you're applying to us, training here, or continuing your career long after. What also came through strongly is that success at Baker McKenzie isn't defined by a single moment. It's not in the offer. It's not just in the starting role. Perhaps not even a particular stage in your career. It's defined by the values that individuals create, the standards that they're going to uphold, and the way that they grow and share as professionals. So for those of you considering Baker McKenzie, the most important question isn't whether you can get in, but whether this is an environment where you want to build your judgment, stretch your thinking, and contribute meaningfully in a connected world. Thank you to our panelists, Ellie, Jenny, and Shiny, for sharing your perspectives so openly. And thank you to our listeners for engaging with this conversation. We hope that it helps you reflect a little bit more intentionally about what excellence looks like in practice and beyond borders. My name is Boipelo, and you've been listening to Excellence Practiced. The views and information expressed in this episode are those of the individual speakers at the time of recording and do not represent the views of Baker McKenzie. This episode is for general information purposes only, does not constitute legal advice, and does not guarantee the outcome of any recruitment or application process.